Somebody actually decided at some point that a good chant for the New York Jets would be Jets, 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 Jets. I mean, I just don't get it. That's not very creative. But anyways, the Jets went 7-9 last season. Let's talk about who's on the roster. Uh, Sam Darnold's the starting quarterback. Honestly, he's probably still, in most people's eyes, a fairly questionable player. But honestly, to me, I think he's a fine quarterback. It's just he needs a little more help on the roster, and maybe kinda has it. I don't really know. Uh, the backup quarterback is Joe Flacco, and I have to say that I am completely out of faith in Joe Flacco. Watching him in Denver last season was absolutely miserable. He looked awful. His career's over with, and I don't even think it's in up in the air for debate. I think he's done, and if he's serving in a backup role, he may as well just be a coach because he shouldn't step foot on the field. Third string QB is some guy named James Morgan because Joe Flacco is actually out currently, so that's interesting. Then at running back, they have Le'Veon Bell, who they paid a lot of money to be. He's a good running back, but the sad thing here is that his stats are not very good because he doesn't. I don't think he has the best blocking ever. And Frank Gore is now the backup, and he was on my Buffalo Bills team last year. And to be honest, I'm sad. It's sad to say, but I'm kind of happy he's gone because I felt like he was stealing a lot of carries and making us call plays that I didn't think made us a better team necessarily. So I actually like the starters at the first two positions we named, but depth wise, not in love with anyone I see on these lists. Then we look at the receivers. Brashad Perriman had a heck of a season down in Tampa last year. Jamison Crowder's been great in the slot in the past few years, and Chris Hogan's actually a starter for this team, which is weird to see. Carolina, he got almost no work last season, but we know in New England he was still able to do some stuff a few years back now. So I'm kind of wondering what kind of effect he will have. I think he was injured for most of last season, so gotta think about it. Then you got other people deeper on the wide receiver depth, like Denzel Mims and Josh Doxson, some notable names, but they're both out as of now. Don't think either of them would be starters anyways. Maybe Denzel Mims would be, but the receiving core is actually improved from last season because I think they were missing so many pieces last year with the receivers that it was pretty tough for them to throw the ball even. They're better, it's just none of them are really stand out like this is our number one receiver type of guys. You get a lot of probably middle of the road to below middle of the road talents. I think Jamison Crowder is actually fairly underrated, though. He's a pretty good player. Then at tight end, you have Chris Herndon, who I've heard a lot about, but I haven't seen it from him, so I'll have to wait and see how he's playing. Ryan Griffin is the backup tight end, and this tight end room those two names are okay, not bad, but once again, nothing too special. I think the only player on offense I've talked about so far that really could be a star is Le'Veon Bell, but he needs some help to be able to do that because of his running style. So now you look at the offensive line, and Mekhi Becton, Alex Lewis, Connor McGovern, Greg Van Roten, and George Fant. I gotta be honest with you, the only name I hear on that list for the offensive line that I can say I really am like thumbs up to is Mekhi Becton, and he's a rookie. So how much of this season can you say that a rookie left tackle will be able to he'll be able to protect the blind side of Sam Darnold pretty well, but I don't know if I'm in love with him just even I don't know if I'm in love with him being great this year as opposed to being great in future years. I think he was a really good draft pick, to be honest. He's a really good player, but this offensive line is still very weak overall, and I think this offense is just kind of lacking. It's not like any of the talent I named was terrible. It's just the offensive line pretty weak, and then the lack of like a star on offense to really put these guys over the top hurts them. Now on defense, You have Henry Anderson starting at one end, Quinnen Williams at the other. Quinnen Williams had a fairly decent rookie season, I'm pretty sure, with Steve McClendon in the middle. Honestly, didn't realize he was still playing. Then at linebackers, you have Terrell Basham, Neville Hewitt, and Avery Williamson is actually the starter, but he's out for this game, so it looks like Blake Cashman will step in for him. And Jordan Jenkins is the other linebacker. That D-line's okay, but once again, we got another linebacking core here that is not anything too desirable, to be completely honest. You're kind of looking like, even if the defensive line is okay, with that weak linebacking core, it seems like this team could have a pretty tough time stopping the run game. Then you look to the secondary, and you've got Pierre Desir. Brian Poole is the slot corner. I'm pretty sure he played pretty well last season. Starting cornerback on the opposite side from Pierre Desir is actually a guy by the name of Bless Austin, who I've never heard of, and Quincy Wilson is also a backup. So I see three names at the cornerback position that I'm fairly familiar with and think they're decent players, but Bless Austin, I have no idea who this is, and he's probably a rookie, but if he earned a starting spot and he's better than Quincy Wilson, then he has to be at least a half-decent player. And then at the safety spot, I'd actually say the secondary is the strength of this defense, really, because I feel it's really balanced. Marcus May is a player I think is pretty solid, and Bradley McDougall, who they got in the Jamal Adams trade. He's obviously not Jamal Adams, but I've seen him make plays before, and it really probably wasn't as much of a downgrade as people just think, oh, you lost Jamal Adams, like you're going to go down to someone really crappy. No, Bradley McDougall is actually still a pretty decent player, and this secondary is probably the best part of the defense. Then kicking, Sam Ficken, and the punter is Braden Mann. So with that, I think that the Jets just lack some real, like, defensive wise. You're lacking just a presence up front in, like, the front seven. I think that's too weak. I think the secondary is just it's solid, but it's nothing like exceptional. And then on offense, you're looking at the same thing, just either a lot of fine players or in the case of most of the offensive line, just yikes kind of guys. So with that, I don't think you're ever going to look at a win total that's too insane unless Sam Darnold single-handedly transforms this unit this season. And I don't think he will, because I think he's a decent player, but I don't think you're looking at him being the guy this season, or even in the future, that is just going to be like a Patrick Mahomes level superstar quarterback to take him. I think he can be their quarterback and they can be successful with him at quarterback, but I don't think the pieces are around him to make that happen. You need a guy like Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes to really just almost take over an offense for you and be able to lead it themselves. But I would say the same thing about my Bills. It's just the supporting cast around Josh Allen is a lot better than the supporting cast around Sam Darnold, just overall with the entire team in general. So, who do they play this season? They play Buffalo, Miami, and New England twice, obviously. I think against the Bills, I want to give them 2 losses. It may be biased, but I think I'm going to go with that, and just not going to explain it because it may be looked at as biased anyways. Miami, I think you could split with Miami and also split with New England. These teams are all kind of hovering around the same level for me. I don't hate any of these teams. I don't think any of these teams will be awful. I was probably lower on the Jets before, but now kind of looking at really the roster, it's actually fairly balanced. But once again, you're just missing. They're not missing as many pieces as I thought they were, but they're still missing a significant number of pieces. So I think splitting games with Miami and splitting games with New England makes sense. So that's 1-1 Miami, 1-1 New England, and 0-2 against the Bills to start out at 2-4 within the division. Then for home games, they have against non-divisional opponents, they got Denver, Las Vegas, Arizona, San Francisco, and Cleveland. I think Denver's a lot better this season. I think San Fran is going to be just as good as last season. Arizona's going to be a pretty good team this year. Cleveland also much improved this year, at least based on my predictions. I'm looking at these teams, and I'm probably only going to pick the Jets to win over Oakland in this, because Denver, Arizona, San Fran, and Cleveland either already high-level teams, or I definitely think they got 3 teams here in Denver, Arizona, and Cleveland that I think all will have much improved seasons, and I think they're better than the Jets. So I think I'm only going to give them the game against Oakland for the home opponents that they go up against, which takes us from our 2-4 record up to 3-8. So now we have to get into the places they go to. And honestly, I was saying that these teams are all hovering around the same level, being Miami, New England, and the Jets, but they don't have the same opponents. So just looking at where they have to go on the road, I think I'm predicting a pretty bad record here for these guys. They got to go to Kansas City. That's tough. Then they got to go to the LA Rams and Seattle. Those are also tough games. I think I can easily give them losses in all 3 of those games, just because I think the talent is much better in all 3 of those, on all 3 of those teams, and they're on the road. So, I mean, just double advantages for those teams. I think they're going to lose those. Then against the LA Chargers and Indianapolis Colts, I think they can probably play these guys a lot closer. But even then, the Chargers and Colts have a lot of guys around that show that have flashes of talent. I think they have a little less talent than the other aforementioned named teams that they play on the road outside of the division. So I actually will, just because I don't think this is a 3-13 team, I think I'll split the games between the LA Chargers and Indianapolis Colts and give the record prediction to the New York Jets as a 4-12 record for this season. Once again, just another team where I don't think they're that bad, but just looking at the matchups, I think 4-12 is where I see them. I mean, they could get up to 5-6 wins, but it's still not going to be easy. I definitely don't think we're looking at a playoff team here. I think you got a lot of reworking that would still have to be done after this season to really get the roster in order to be able to compete for the playoffs. Once again, want to say that I do not think Sam Darnold is the issue, to be completely honest. But it's just not there right now, and I'm going to predict them to be a 4-12 football team at the end of this season.
So, if you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching.
2020 president candidate.